I bought my son his dream house. He locked me out and said, "You don't belong here." I swallowed the humiliation. A week later, the building manager called. "Your son has been filing documents." What I discovered is serious. I realized my son was trying to erase me from his life, and I decided I would erase him from mine. I'm grateful you're listening. Type "heard" if this resonates and tell me where you're from. Have you ever been erased by someone you sacrificed for disclaimer creative storytelling with universal truths? What I found in those papers changed everything. The bus driver gave me a strange look when I asked him to stop at East 7th Avenue. I suppose I didn't look like I belonged in Cherry Creek. I'd taken 2 buses to get here, the number 12 from Colfax, then the 25 that wound through neighborhoods I'd only seen in magazines. Through the window, I watched the city transform. Pawn shops became coffee shops with French names. Chain-link fences became wrought iron. Cracked concrete turned smooth as marble. By the time we reached Cherry Creek, I was alone in the back, clutching a Tupperware container with homemade apple pie. Granny Smith apple cinnamon lattice crust woven by hands that still ached from yesterday's hospital shift. Kyle used to say my apple pie was the best thing in the world. That was a long time ago. The bus hissed to a stop. "This is you, ma'am," the driver said, his tone curious, maybe concerned. I stepped onto a sidewalk so clean it looked scrubbed. The autumn air smelled expensive, fresh-cut grass and fireplace smoke. Not bus exhaust, not desperation, just ease. The houses here didn't look like houses. They looked like statements. 3 stories of brick and stone, manicured lawns, cars and driveways that cost more than I'd earned in 15 years. 15 years of saving every dollar, watching that envelope under my mattress grow thick. For this. For him. I walked slowly, checking brass numbers beside each door. A woman jogging past in expensive athletic wear glanced at me, then looked away fast. I wasn't part of her scenery. 2847 East 7th Avenue. My breath caught. Victorian elegance. Cream brick with dark green shutters. White trim gleaming in afternoon light. Stone steps leading to a porch with columns. A brass lion's head knocker. My money had bought this. Every brick. Every window. $170,000 that represented every morning I woke before dawn, every dinner I skipped, every time I told myself new shoes could wait. I climbed the steps, each one solid beneath my feet. A woman emerged from next door with a small white dog. She wore cashmere and cream-colored slacks that probably cost my monthly rent. Our eyes met. She took in my coat, my good wool coat from 2016, carefully mended. Her expression flickered. Pity, discomfort. She looked away and hurried past dog collar jingling. Mrs. Rhodes, her nameplate said. I stood before the door. In my purse, buried beneath my wallet, was the spare key Kyle had given me 6 months ago. Just in case, Mom. But I didn't reach for it. I wanted him to open the door. I wanted to see his face light up. I rang the bell. It chimed inside, melodic, expensive. Footsteps approached. Quick and confident on hardwood floors. The door swung open. Kyle stood there in a crisp white shirt, wine glass in hand. Behind him, I glimpsed warm lighting, modern furniture, everything I'd imagined. His face was already arranged in a smile, expecting someone else. A delivery, a neighbor, anyone but me. His eyes focused. Recognition hit. His smile died the moment he recognized me. He stepped onto the porch and pulled the door shut behind him, wouldn't even let me see what my money had bought. Mom. Not a greeting. A statement. His hand stayed on the doorknob body, blocking the entrance. What are you doing here? I held up the Tupperware, suddenly feeling foolish. I brought you apple pie, your favorite. I thought we could... I wanted to see the house. His eyes darted past me to the street, checking if anyone was watching. I told you I'd invite you over, when things were settled. It's been 6 months, Kyle. Something tightened in his jaw. Tonight's not good. Adrienne's father is coming for dinner. It's important. I won't stay long. Just a quick look. No. Sharp. He softened it with a sigh, rubbed his temple. Mom, listen. This neighborhood, these people. He gestured at the pristine street. You don't fit here. The words landed like stones in my chest. I don't fit, it's not. He glanced at the closed door, then back, lowering his voice. You don't understand what I'm building. Adrienne's father owns a cybersecurity firm. This dinner could change my career, and if he sees... He stopped. If he sees what Kyle, your mother... His face flushed. If he sees you, he'll have questions about where I come from. I looked down at the pie, at my coat sleeve with its careful mending, at my worn shoes. You're ashamed of me. I'm not... But he couldn't finish the lie. Please, just go. I'll call you next week. Not here, though. Never here. I set the Tupperware beside a potted plant that probably cost more than my monthly groceries. The container looked cheap against the stone. Wrong. Like me. Kyle. I have to get back inside. Already turning. Thanks for the pie. The door closed. Not slammed, that would draw attention. Just firm. Final. Then the lock. That click echoed louder than it should have. The sound of being shut out. I stood there staring at my reflection in the brass knocker. Behind me, footsteps. Mrs. Rhodes and her white dog. Our eyes met. I saw pity mixed with relief that she wasn't me. She clutched the leash tighter and hurried past heels clicking. I walked down the steps, each one steeper than before. The bus stop was 2 blocks away. I timed my breathing. In for 4 counts. Out for 4. An old trick from when Kyle was young and money was tighter and panic felt close. The number 25 came. I sat in the back watching Cherry Creek disappear, the houses, the perfect lawns, the life I'd bought, but couldn't enter. I didn't cry. Not on the street where someone might see. Not on the bus where the driver might ask if I was okay. Not even in my apartment where the walls were thin. I just sat in my worn armchair and felt something inside me crack. Not break, not yet. That lock's click kept echoing. I didn't know then what Kyle had been hiding inside those walls documents that would change everything. It started half my life ago on Kyle's 16th birthday when he said the words that would become my mission. Mom, someday I want a house in Cherry Creek. We were sitting in my efficiency apartment on Colfax 300 square feet that served as bedroom, kitchen, and living room all at once. The cake I'd made sat between us on the folding table, 16 candles burning down to stubs. Kyle had a magazine open in front of him. Denver luxury living someone at school had given him. He was staring at a photo spread of Cherry Creek townhouses. That's where successful people live, he said, running his finger along the glossy page. Not with envy, with determination. Someday, Mom, I'm gonna live there. I looked at the photo. Brick facades. Wrought iron, trees that didn't grow from cracks in concrete. It might as well have been Mars. Then you will, I told him, because that's what mothers do. We make promises we don't know how to keep. That night, after he'd gone to bed in the alcove we'd curtained off for privacy, I did the math. Cherry Creek houses started at $500,000. Down payments ran 20%. $100,000 minimum. On my salary at Denver Health, $35,000 a year as an environmental services technician, which was a fancy way of saying I cleaned I could save maybe $11,000 annually if I cut everything to bone. It would take a decade and a half. I was 47 years old. I'd be 62. I started the next morning. The first year I stopped buying new anything. My blue work uniform faded from washing until the hospital logo was barely visible, but I kept wearing it. When my back started aching from the constant bending and lifting, I skipped the doctor. Tylenol was cheaper. I made it stretch. 2 pills instead of 4. I stopped eating lunch in the cafeteria. Other technicians would gather there, sharing complaints about management and trading gossip. I'd eat what I brought from home, usually last night's rice and beans in the supply closet during my break. Alone. Quiet. Thinking about that magazine photo. The envelope under my mattress grew slowly, 10s, then 20s, then occasional 50s. I counted it every Sunday morning like a ritual, smoothed each bill flat. Added up the total in a notebook I kept hidden inside my Bible. Kyle called less and less from college. At first it was weekly, then every other week, then just birthdays and major holidays. When he did call, he sounded busy, distracted, talking about networking events and internships and people I'd never met. "That's good, baby," I'd say. "You're building your future." I didn't tell him about the envelope, didn't want him to feel guilty, didn't want him to tell me to stop. By year 7, my knuckles had swollen with arthritis. The doctor I finally saw when the pain got so bad I couldn't grip the mop handle said it was from repetitive stress. Decades of scrubbing floors. He gave me a prescription I couldn't afford to fill. But the envelope under my mattress held $80,000. I was halfway there. The distance grew so slowly I convinced myself it wasn't real. Years 8 through 15 blurred together a montage of aching joints and growing silence. Kyle graduated, got hired at a software company downtown as a business development manager. His salary jumped. He moved from his college apartment to a better one in Lodo. Started wearing suits that cost more than my monthly rent. The phone calls that had dwindled to monthly became quarterly, then just holidays, Christmas, his birthday. Mine, if he remembered. When he did call, I'd hear voices in the background, laughter, music, the sound of a life I wasn't part of. "Can't talk long, Mom. We're heading out to this new place you wouldn't know it." He was right. I wouldn't. Once I stopped by his office to drop off his birthday gift, a sweater I'd saved 3 months to buy. The receptionist called up to him. I watched through the glass walls as he appeared on the second floor, looked down, saw me. His expression flickered, something like panic. He sent word through the receptionist that he was in a meeting. Could I just leave it at the desk? I left it. Never saw him wear it. He's building his career, I told myself. He's busy. That's good. But I kept saving, kept scrubbing. The envelope under my mattress grew past 90,000, then 100, then 150. My back bent a little more. My hands seized up on cold mornings. But the number kept climbing. 6 months ago, I finally had enough. I withdrew it all, got a cashier's check. $170,000, every penny I'd saved in 15 years. The bank teller's hands shook slightly as she printed it. That kind of money doesn't pass through Colfax branches often. I called Kyle. "Can you come over? I have something for you." He came. Actually came to my apartment for the first time in years. Looked around at the peeling wallpaper, the sagging couch, like he was seeing it for the first time. Or maybe remembering what he'd been trying to forget. I handed him the check. He stared at it, at the numbers, at my signature. Then he cried. I held him while his shoulders shook, and I felt something warm spread through my chest. This was it. This was worth it. All those years, all that pain, this moment made it mean something. "Thank you," he whispered. "Mom, I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything, baby." We found the house 2 weeks later. He signed the papers, moved in within a month. That was 6 months ago. Now I sat in my apartment, the one with peeling wallpaper and the sagging couch, and stared at the empty space under my mattress where the envelope used to be. The lock's click still echoed in my ears. I thought his tears that day were gratitude. I didn't know they were guilt. For 2 days, I sat in my apartment replaying that moment at the door. On the 3rd day, Sunday afternoon, my phone rang. Not Kyle. Someone else, unknown number. Probably a telemarketer. But something made me pick up. Mrs. Callahan. A man's voice, unfamiliar, nervous. "This is Vernon Hayes from Cherry Creek Estates." Cherry Creek Estates, Kyle's building management. Yes. "I don't know if you remember me. 5 years ago, winter, outside the public library on Colfax." I closed my eyes, searching. 5 years ago. The library where I ate lunch sometimes. "You gave me $200 for rent," he continued quietly, "and wrote me a reference letter for a building superintendent job. You didn't know me. You just saw me." The memory surfaced. A man on the library steps in. December, hands red from cold. No gloves. He'd lost his job, his apartment, been sleeping in his car. I'd given what I could. Written a letter on library stationery calling him reliable, trustworthy things I hoped were true. "I remember," I said. "You needed help." "You saved my life that day, Mrs. Callahan. I got the job. Been working for Cherry Creek Property Management ever since." He paused. "I'm calling because I work at your son's building." My pulse quickened. Is Kyle all right? Physically, yes, but Mrs. Callahan. His voice dropped. Your son told everyone here his parents died in a car accident 3 years ago. The room tilted. What? I'm sorry, I've been struggling with this for weeks. Then I saw you Friday evening, standing outside his door. I recognized you from the photo in his application file. Dead. He told people I was dead. When Kyle moved in, Vernon continued, he filed standard paperwork. Emergency contact list said, none parents deceased. I thought it was strange, but not my business. Then a few weeks ago, I saw him meeting with a man in an expensive suit, briefcase. They were in Kyle's apartment for over an hour. After he left, Kyle came down to file documents. Official looking. Government seals. What kind of documents? I don't know exactly, but something felt wrong. When he wasn't looking, I made copies. Vernon's urgency increased. Mrs. Callahan, I've seen things in this work. People hiding from ex-spouses, running from debt. But this what your son is doing, you need to see it yourself. Tell me now. Not over the phone, please. Can you meet me tomorrow 6 a.m. before your son wakes up the building office? Why can't you tell me? Because when you see these documents, you're going to want to call the police. And I need to know that's what you want before I show you. Police. The word hung between us. Mrs. Callahan. My hands went cold. I'll be there. 6 a.m. service entrance on the east side. The door's marked maintenance. That's where cleaning crews enter. You won't see Kyle. Vernon, what did he do? Silence stretched. Then, he's been planning something for months. And Mrs. Callahan. His voice cracked. I'm so sorry. I should have called sooner, but I kept hoping I was wrong. The line went dead. I sat holding the phone in the dimming light. Dead. Kyle had declared me dead, not metaphorically, officially, on paperwork, to his building, to his neighbors, to strangers, to who else? What documents had he filed that needed government seals? What was he planning? And why did Vernon think I'd want to call the police? I looked at my reflection in the darkened phone screen. Older than I remembered. Tired. Gray hair that needed cutting, lines around my mouth, but alive. Very much alive. I didn't sleep that night. Just sat in my armchair as darkness fell, staring at nothing, trying to understand. Kyle had problems, I knew that. Distance, shame, ambition that made him forget where he came from. But declaring me dead, filing false documents, that wasn't shame. That was something else. Something I'd have to see to believe. At 5:30 Monday morning, I was already dressed, standing at the bus stop in darkness, waiting for the number 12. I rode it through the empty city, watching dawn break over Denver. Got off at 7th and Fillmore as the sky turned gray. I found the maintenance entrance on the east side of Kyle's building, a plain metal door between two evergreen shrubs. Sign said, Maintenance, authorized personnel only. I knocked twice. Vernon Hayes opened it immediately. Work coveralls, thermos of coffee eyes that said he hadn't slept either. Mrs. Callahan. He glanced past me to the empty street, then pulled me inside. Cleaning crew doesn't start until 7. We have an hour. The service hallway smelled like industrial cleaner. My old smell. He led me through a door marked Building Office, staff only. Small room, filing cabinets, desk covered in papers, computer glowing in dim light. Vernon pulled out a chair for me. I'm going to show you 3 things, he said. You need to see them in order. He typed on the computer, turned the monitor toward me. First, resident records. A database. Names, apartment numbers, emergency contacts. He scrolled to Callahan Kyle. Unit 3B, emergency contact none. Parents deceased 2021, next of kin. None 3 years ago. While I was saving, he was erasing me. That's what Kyle filed when he moved in, Vernon said quietly. Most people list someone. Kyle wrote none. I couldn't speak. Second thing, Vernon pulled out his phone. Security footage, 3 weeks ago. He pressed play. The lobby appeared marble floors, chandelier modern furniture. Kyle stood with two older people, a man in a tailored suit, silver hair, a woman in black dress and pearls. They were rehearsing. Vernon turned up the volume. Remember. Kyle's voice came through tinny but clear. You died of a heart attack. Very sudden. You were wonderful parents. He gestured at the man. Gerald, don't gesture so much. You're understated. Old money. The man Gerald nodded, tried again with less movement. Better. And Beverly. Kyle turned to the woman. When you mention mom, catch in your voice, like grief is still fresh, not sobbing, just a catch. The woman practiced dabbing her eyes. My hands gripped the chair arms. Actors, Vernon said. Gerald Ashford and Beverly Sutton. They do corporate events, wedding speeches. Kyle hired them to play you and your husband. To play my corpse. There's a third thing. Vernon's hand shook as he opened a file cabinet drawer. A few weeks ago, a man came to see Kyle, expensive suit leather briefcase. After he left, Kyle filed updated documents with building management, said it was routine insurance paperwork. He pulled out a manila folder, photocopies inside. I shouldn't have copied these. Could lose my job. But when I saw what he filed, Vernon set the folder on the desk. The man who visited Franklin Pierce, mortgage broker, specializes in high-value property loans. Mortgage. My house. Vernon opened the folder slowly like it might bite. I kept hoping I was wrong about this last part, kept telling myself there had to be an explanation. He looked at me. Mrs. Callahan, I'm sorry. He pulled out a single sheet. Official header. State Seal of Colorado, Department of Public Health and Environment. Certificate of Death. My name at the top. Helen Marie Callahan. And below it, stamped in black ink, Helen Marie Callahan, age 59. I stopped reading. Something was wrong. I was 62. Whoever forged this couldn't even get my age right. Date of death, June 15th, 2024, June 15th, the day after Kyle's 30th birthday. I'd called him that morning to wish him happy birthday. He'd said he was busy, couldn't talk, had a work thing. I'd heard voices in the background, laughter, music, a party I wasn't invited to. The next day, according to this document, I died, cause of death heart failure. The irony wasn't lost on me. My heart had failed, all right. Just not the way this paper claimed, not with stopped beats and ambulances, with a locked door and my son's embarrassed face. Place of death, Denver Health Medical Center. The hospital where I'd worked for 30 years, where I'd scrubbed floors and emptied trash bins and saved every spare dollar. They'd killed me off in the building where I'd spent half my life. I read it again, then again. The words didn't change. The document looked official. State seal embossed in the corner. Registrar's signature at the bottom, some name I didn't recognize, but that looked real enough. File number, registration date, all the proper boxes checked. A perfect forgery. When did you find this? My voice sounded distant, not mine. 2 weeks ago, Vernon said. A resident complained that building management had the wrong emergency contact for her unit. I was updating our system cross-checking files, found this in Kyle's folder. He sat on the edge of the desk. I didn't know what to do, thought about calling the police right then. But I wasn't sure. I mean, you were alive, obviously something was wrong, but I didn't know if maybe there was an explanation. Some kind of mistake. This wasn't a mistake. I touched the paper. My fingers left prints on the photocopy. This took planning. He had to find someone to forge a state document. Had to file it with building management, my throat closed, had to want me gone that badly. Mrs. Callahan. Vernon's voice was gentle. You need a lawyer, someone who knows how to handle this. I know someone helped me 3 years ago with a custody case. Did it pro bono because I couldn't afford her rate. He pulled a business card from his shirt pocket, worn at the edges like he'd been carrying it a while. Carolyn Mercer, attorney at law, an address downtown, a phone number. She's good, Vernon said, and she'll believe you. I'll vouch for you if you need me to. I took the card, stared at it. A lawyer meant this was real, meant I was actually considering what suing my own son, having him arrested for declaring me deceased. I don't understand why, I said. Why would he do this? What does he gain from me being, I couldn't say the word, dead? I don't know, Vernon admitted. But Mrs. Callahan, whatever he's planning this document makes it legal. In the eyes of the state, you died 4 months ago. That means, he hesitated. What? That means legally you don't exist. Can't own property. Can't sign contracts. Can't. He looked at me. Your house, the one you bought him, is it still in your name? The room tilted. My house. My name on the deed. $170,000. All my savings. Everything I had. If I was legally dead, I need to see that lawyer, I said. Now. Vernon nodded. I'll drive you. My shift doesn't start until 8. I stood legs unsteady, looked at the photocopy of my death certificate one more time. My name, my birth date, my son's lies printed in official typeface. Vernon. My voice cracked. Why would he do this? His face was grim. I don't know, but whatever Kyle's planning this document makes it legal. Carolyn Mercer's law office sat downtown on the 20th floor overlooking the Rockies. She listened to my story without interrupting. Then she opened her laptop. May I? She asked, gesturing to the death certificate Vernon had copied. I slid it across her glass desk. She scanned it into her system, her eyes moving rapidly across dual monitors. The silence stretched. Outside, Denver sprawled below us, glass towers catching the late afternoon sun, the mountains beyond turning purple in the autumn light. This is sophisticated, Carolyn said finally. Professional-grade forgery. The seal looks legitimate. The signature algorithm matches state standards. But she clicked something. The serial number doesn't exist in Colorado's vital records database. My stomach dropped. So it's fake. Completely. Whoever created this knew exactly what they were doing. She turned to her other screen. Let me check property records. Her fingers flew across the keyboard. I watched her face, sharp features, gray-streaked hair, pulled back, reading glasses perched on her nose. Vernon had told me she'd helped him win custody of his daughter 5 years ago. She fights, he'd said. Okay. Carolyn leaned back. The good news, the house is still in your name. Helen Marie Callahan's sole owner deed recorded June 2024. Relief washed through me. So he can't... Wait. She clicked again. Her expression darkened. There's a quitclaim deed filed 2 weeks ago, transferring ownership from you to Kyle Callahan. She scrolled. Using a power of attorney allegedly signed by you on June 20th. I never signed anything. I know. Because according to this death certificate, you died June 15th. She met my eyes. He tried to transfer the house from a dead woman to himself as if you'd given him permission before you died. The room tilted. I gripped the armrests of my chair. Carolyn kept working. Let me dig deeper. More clicks. A frown. Helen, when did Kyle move into the house? August, right after I gave him the down payment. And he moved in alone. Yes. He said he wanted to get settled before... I stopped. Before what? Before inventing dead parents. Before staging a fake identity. Carolyn's face had gone still. There's a mortgage here. Filed 3 weeks ago. $150,000 secured against the property. Lender First National Denver. Loan officer Philip Montgomery. But the house is paid off. I gave him... My voice cracked. I gave him $170,000 cash. I know. She pulled up another window. I have a contact at First National. Let me access the transaction history. Her fingers paused over the keyboard. This requires your verbal consent. Do it. Numbers filled her screen. Line after line of transfers, dates, amounts. Carolyn highlighted 3. September 8th. $25,000. Payee Tiffany and Company. The engagement ring. I'd seen it on Adriana's finger Friday night before I'd been locked out. September 15th. $15,000. European travel booking. Luxury class. The trip he'd mentioned. The one to show Adrian where his parents honeymooned? More lies. September 22nd, $10,000. Neiman Marcus, Denver. The clothes, the expensive suits I'd glimpsed through the window, the wardrobe of a man who belonged in Cherry Creek. He mortgaged my house, I whispered, to buy his way into her family. Yes, Carolyn closed her laptop. Helen, this isn't just family betrayal. These are serious felonies, forgery, identity theft, mortgage fraud, wire fraud. Some of these are federal crimes. The weight of it crushed down. My son, my Kyle, who I'd raised alone, who I'd sacrificed everything for, had erased me, killed me on paper, stolen my name, my home, my life. What happens now? I asked. I'll file an emergency injunction to stop any foreclosure proceedings. I'll contact Detective Michelle Crawford. She handles economic crimes for Denver PD. Carolyn's voice gentled. But Helen, you need to understand. When we do this, your son will be arrested. I thought about the locked door, about 15 years of mopping hospital floors at 5 in the morning, about my name on a death certificate, about the house I'd bought with swollen hands and an aching back, the house he was trying to steal. I met Carolyn's eyes. I'm certain, I said. Stop him. I had 4 days to build a case, 4 days to become someone my son wouldn't recognize. Tuesday morning, I met Carolyn at her office at 8. She'd already drafted the emergency injunction. This stops any foreclosure proceedings, she explained, sliding papers across her desk. It also freezes the fraudulent quitclaim deed. Kyle can't touch that house. I signed my name, Helen Marie Callahan, in 5 places. My hand didn't shake. Next step, Carolyn said, is the police. Detective Michelle Crawford's office sat in the Denver Police Department's Economic Crimes Unit, a fluorescent-lit room that smelled of burnt coffee and old files. She was younger than I'd expected, maybe 40, with sharp eyes and a wedding band worn thin. Mrs. Callahan. She shook my hand firmly. Please sit. For 2 hours, I gave my statement. The hardest part wasn't recounting the facts, the forged death certificate, the fraudulent mortgage, the stolen identity. The hardest part was saying my son and committed fraud in the same breath. Detective Crawford took notes by hand, her writing quick and precise. When I faltered, she waited patiently. I need to understand his access, she said. Did he have your social security number? Yes, I gave it to him years ago for tax documents. Bank account information. Some. He helped me set up online banking 2 years ago. She wrote it down. Every answer became evidence. Every memory became a piece of the case against my own son. Here's what happens next, Crawford said. I'll coordinate with the DA's office. Based on what you've shown me, we have enough for an arrest warrant. The word arrest hit like a fist. When? I asked. Crawford glanced at Carolyn. We could move as early as tomorrow, but Ms. Mercer suggested we might want to wait. Carolyn leaned forward. Helen Kyle is hosting that dinner party Friday night. If we wait until then, he'll be caught in the middle of his lies. I finished. Yes, with witnesses. The Lancasters will see exactly who they were about to welcome into their family. I thought about Preston Lancaster's CEO, powerful protective of his daughter, about Adrian wearing a ring bought with stolen money, about Kyle playing the role of grieving orphan who'd overcome tragedy. Friday night, I said, let him have his performance, then we end it. Detective Crawford nodded. I'll prepare the warrant for 8 p.m. Mrs. Callahan. She added, this will be public. Your son will be arrested in front of his fiancée, her family, and anyone else present. Good, I heard myself say. They deserve to know who he really is. The next hour, Carolyn walked me through what would happen, what to bring, what to say, how to handle Kyle's denials because there would be denials. He'll try to turn it around, she warned, make you the villain. Say you're confused, you're lying, you're trying to sabotage his happiness. I know. Can you handle that in front of strangers? I met her eyes. I've handled 15 years of double shifts and a back that never stops hurting. I can handle my son's lies. Carolyn almost smiled. Okay then. As I stood to leave, Detective Crawford closed the case file. "Mrs. Callahan, once we move forward, there's no going back. Your son will have a criminal record." I thought about the locked door, the forged death certificate, my name on documents I'd never signed, the house I'd bought with 15 years of sacrifice, the house he'd tried to steal while erasing me. I picked up my purse. "He made his choice, Detective. I'm just making mine." The door closed behind me with a soft click. Outside, Denver glittered under September's sun. I had 3 days left. Wednesday night, I sat alone with a photograph of Kyle at 16, the boy who dreamed of Cherry Creek. I wondered when that boy had died. The picture was creased at the edges, faded from years in my wallet. Kyle stood outside our apartment on Colfax, holding a basketball, grinning. He'd just made the JV team. I remembered him at 10 helping me carry groceries up 3 flights of stairs, at 12 making me toast on Saturday mornings, at 14 walking me to the bus stop before dawn because he worried about me. When had he stopped being that boy? I set the photo down. My hands looked old in the lamplight, swollen knuckles, veins, prominent calluses that would never fade. These were the hands that had raised him, and now they would hold the evidence that would destroy him. "This is the lesson I failed to teach you," I whispered. "Actions have consequences." Thursday morning, I took the bus to the thrift store on Colfax Avenue, the same store where I'd bought Kyle's school clothes for years. I needed something to wear. Something dignified, but not expensive. Something that said, "I belong here because I paid for this house." I found a navy dress on the clearance rack. Simple, long-sleeved, appropriate for autumn. $18. In the thrift store's cracked mirror, I looked at myself. Gray roots showing, lines around my eyes, a hospital cleaner in a second-hand dress. But my spine was straight. My eyes were clear. This would do. Thursday evening, Vernon called. "Dinner's at 7, he said. "Preston and Jacqueline Lancaster, Adrian, those 2 actors, Gerald and Beverly, and Kyle's co-worker, Cameron Aldridge." 7 people, I repeated. After we hung up, I called Carolyn. We ran through it one more time. "You arrive at 7:15, she said. "Kyle will already be mid-performance. Stay calm. State the facts." "When do I show the documents?" "Only if you have to. Detective Crawford will arrive at 8. Your job is just to be there. To be alive." Her voice softened. "Helen, he'll deny everything." I thought about the death certificate, about my name with deceased stamped across it. "I've been dead for 3 months, according to him," I said. "I can handle being called crazy for one night." Thursday night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in my apartment listening to sirens on Colfax. On my nightstand sat the house deed. Helen Marie Callahan, sole owner. I'd paid for that house with 15 years of pain. It was mine. Friday morning. I didn't just put on a dress, I put on armor. The navy fabric felt heavy with the weight of 15 years. As I tucked the death certificate into my purse, I realized I wasn't going there to beg for a place in his life. I was going there to reclaim mine. My hands, once used only for scrubbing hospital floors, were now steady and cold. These were no longer the hands of a woman who'd been locked out. These were the hands that would open the door to truth. The taxi pulled up to 2847 East 7th Avenue at exactly 7:15. Through the glowing dining room window, the scene looked like a painting of a life I wasn't supposed to exist in. Kyle stood at the head of the table, my table in my house, wearing a navy suit I'd never seen pouring wine for people who believed I was dead. The crystal chandelier cast soft light over white linens, silver candlesticks, wine glasses catching the flame. Everything I'd paid for, everything he'd claimed as his own. Gerald Ashford sat to his right, playing the distinguished father with silver hair perfectly combed and a suit that cost more than my monthly rent. He laughed at something Kyle said, his hand resting on the table like he owned it. Beverly Sutton wore pearls and a black dress touching Kyle's arm with the maternal pride that should have been mine. Adrienne Lancaster sat beside Kyle, radiant in pale blue. Mid-20s, beautiful, laughing at his stories. The ring on her finger caught the light, $25,000 of stolen money glittering in the candlelight. Preston Lancaster sat across from them, tall, imposing silver at his temples, watching Kyle with the measured assessment of a man who built empires, evaluating, judging, deciding if this self-made orphan was worthy of his daughter. Jacqueline Lancaster beside him refined in diamonds and silk, the picture of old money elegance. Cameron Aldridge, Kyle's co-worker, nodded and smiled at all the right moments, the supportive friend completing the illusion. The window was closed, but when someone opened the kitchen door, fragments of conversation drifted out. The values my parents taught me. Kyle's voice, smooth, confident, rehearsed. Laughter followed. Gerald raised his glass in a toast to the son he'd never had. I watched my son lie with the ease of someone who'd been practicing for months, watched him gesture to the actors playing his dead parents, watched him accept Preston Lancaster's approving nod. My chest ached, not just with anger, with grief, because somewhere inside that performance was the boy I'd raised, the boy who'd carried my groceries, the boy who'd made me toast, but he'd made his choice. Movement at the corner of my eye. Vernon appeared briefly at the service entrance 2 houses down, nodded once. The police were in position. I took a breath. The navy dress felt like armor now. My purse held everything, the documents, the truth, the proof that I was still alive. Through the window, Kyle raised his glass. "To family," he said. Gerald and Beverly lifted theirs. Preston smiled. Adrian beamed. "To family," they echoed. I didn't wait. I didn't hesitate. I walked up those stone steps with the deed to the house in my hand, ready to haunt the living. I pressed the doorbell. Inside, the music stopped. I heard footsteps approaching the door. A pause, Kyle checking the peephole. I looked straight into it, making sure he could see me clearly. The lock clicked. The door opened. Kyle expected a delivery driver, maybe Vernon with a message. Instead, he found me. The color drained from his face. His mouth opened, but no sound came. His hand gripped the doorframe like he might fall. "Mom," a whisper, strangled with terror. I kept my voice calm, gentle even. "Hello, Kyle. May I come in?" He didn't move, couldn't move. His eyes darted past me to the street as if checking whether I was real. "What are you—" His whisper turned frantic. "You can't be here. I told you not to—" Kyle, Preston Lancaster's voice carried from the dining room. "Is someone at the door?" I didn't wait for an invitation. I stepped forward. Kyle moved to block me, but weakly, like a man underwater. His hands came up but didn't touch me. I raised my voice loud enough for the dining room to hear. "Everything's fine. I'm Helen Callahan, Kyle's mother." The silence that followed was absolute. No forks scraping plates, no conversation. Even the music had stopped. I stepped past Kyle into the foyer. Through the archway, I could see the dining room, the table, the faces turning toward me. Gerald Ashford saw me first. Recognition flashed across his features. He froze wineglass halfway to his lips. Beverly Sutton's face went slack. Her wineglass slipped from her fingers and shattered on the hardwood floor. Red wine spread across the white tablecloth like blood. Adrienne looked confused, her gaze bouncing between Kyle and me. Preston Lancaster slowly rose to his feet, tall, imposing. His eyes moved from me to Kyle and back again, calculating. Jacqueline Lancaster remained seated, but her hand had gone to her throat, fingers touching her diamond necklace. Cameron Aldridge simply stared. Kyle stumbled after me into the foyer. "Mom, please!" His voice cracked. "Please, this isn't, you shouldn't." I turned to face him. In the light from the chandelier, I could see everything. The expensive suit, the perfectly styled hair, the veneer of success built with stolen money, and beneath it, panic. Kyle. Adrian stood moving toward the archway. "Who is this?" Kyle opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. No words came. Preston's voice cut through the silence, formal and cold. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but there seems to be some confusion here. Kyle told us his mother passed away 3 years ago." 7 faces turned to me, waiting. The actors knew the truth, but couldn't speak. The Lancasters and Cameron believed Kyle's lie. I stepped fully into the dining room light. The chandelier cast my shadow long across the floor. "The reports of my death," I said, "have been greatly exaggerated." I walked to the head of the table, my table in my house, and set down my purse. 8 pairs of eyes locked on me. Only Kyle's looked away. "Mom." Kyle's voice came out strangled. He moved toward me, hands raised. "Mom, you're confused. Your medication." "Kyle, what is she talking about?" Adrian's voice was small. Kyle turned to her, his face shifting into concern. "I didn't want to tell you this way. My mother, she has early onset dementia. It started 2 years ago. She has episodes." The lie came smoothly. "I've been taking care of her." He continued looking at Preston, paying for her care. "But sometimes she wanders, gets disoriented." He turned back to me. "Mom, you shouldn't have come tonight. New environments upset you." Adrian stared at me, then at Kyle. "But you said she was dead. You told us she died 3 years ago. Why would you lie about that?" Kyle's jaw tightened. A bead of sweat appeared at his temple. To protect her dignity. She doesn't remember what she says, gets violent when people correct her. I thought it would be easier, kinder to let her rest in peace in people's minds. The performance was extraordinary, almost believable. Preston crossed his arms. "Kyle, I need you to explain what's happening here." "I will, sir. It's just—" Kyle gestured helplessly at me. "She's having an episode. She does this. Shows up places, says things that aren't true." "I don't have dementia, Kyle." My voice cut through his rambling, steady, clear. "I have an excellent memory, and I have documentation." I reached into my purse and pulled out the death certificate, laid it on the table in front of Preston. "Helen Marie Callahan." I read aloud. "Deceased June 15th, 2024. Cause of death, heart failure." The silence was suffocating. I looked up at Kyle. "Ironic, isn't it, because something in me only truly broke when you locked me out of this house." Preston picked up the certificate, examined it, the state seal, the official signatures. His expression darkened. Adrian reached for it, her hands shaking. "This is a state document with seals. Kyle, what is this?" "It's fake." Kyle's voice rose, desperation bleeding through. "She made it. She's doing this for attention or money, or maybe she's sicker than I thought." "Money?" I turned to him. "Kyle, I gave you everything." "You didn't give me anything." His composure cracked. Sweat beaded on his upper lip. "You gave me a down payment, yes, but it was my investment, my vision." "Your investment." My voice stayed level. $170,000. 15 years of savings. My money. My house. Preston stood slowly. "Kyle, I'm going to ask you one more time. What is going on here?" Kyle opened his mouth, closed it. His eyes darted around the table. Cameron looked away. Jacqueline's face had gone cold. Adrienne was staring at the death certificate. "She's lying," Kyle said finally, weakly. "All of it. She must have stolen that document somehow, or—" Beverly Sutton's face had gone ashen. She sat frozen, and Gerald Ashford looked like he was about to be sick. His chair scraped loudly against the floor. He stood, his hands trembling. "I can't do this anymore," he said. Beverly grabbed his arm. "Gerald, don't—" But he was looking at Preston Lancaster, at the powerful man whose daughter his son was supposed to marry. Gerald's voice shook. "Sir, I need to tell you something." Gerald Ashford straightened his spine, looked Preston Lancaster in the eye, and said, "I'm not Kyle's father. I'm an actor. He paid me $5,000 to play his deceased father tonight." The room detonated. Preston's head snapped toward Gerald. "What?" Kyle lunged forward. "He's lying. He's drunk." "I'm not drunk." Gerald's voice was steady. "And I'm done lying." Beverly Sutton stood, tears streaming. "I'm so sorry. We needed the money. He told us it was harmless, just a surprise for his girlfriend's family. We didn't know—" "Know what?" Preston's voice cut like steel. Gerald pulled a folded paper from his jacket. He gave us a script, told us to memorize how his parents died. Car accident 3 years ago, very tragic. He handed it to Preston. This is what he wanted us to say. Preston unfolded it. Read. His jaw clenched. Adrienne backed away from Kyle, her hand over her mouth. You hired actors. You made up dead parents. Kyle reached for her. Let me explain. Don't touch me. Her voice broke. Have you ever told me the truth about anything? I love you. Kyle's voice cracked. Everything I did for us. You lied to my family. Adrienne's eyes were wild. You brought imposters into our home. Jacqueline Lancaster stood abruptly. You brought frauds into our house. Cameron Aldridge pushed back from the table. Jesus, Kyle. I knew you were ambitious, but this... Preston's voice dropped to deadly calm. Young man, I think this dinner is over. I suggest you leave. No, wait. Kyle turned to Preston, hands raised. I can explain. I was going to tell you. I just needed time. To what? Preston's eyes were ice. To dig yourself deeper. Kyle spun toward Adrienne. You know me. You know who I am. I don't. Adrienne's voice was barely a whisper. I don't know you at all. The devastation on her face was complete. Actually, Mr. Lancaster, I said, there's more. You should hear it before you decide anything. Every eye turned to me. Kyle's face went from desperate to terrified. I reached into my purse and pulled out a folder. Bank records. Mortgage documents. Before Kyle leaves, I said, you should know that your daughter's engagement ring was purchased with stolen money. Money Kyle obtained by fraudulently mortgaging this house. I opened the folder and laid a page on the table. A bank statement. The highlighted line, $25,000. Tiffany and Company. This house is in my name. I paid for it with every drop of my sweats. But 3 weeks ago, Kyle used forged documents to take out a mortgage for $150,000. Preston picked up the document. His expression turned to stone. He used that money to buy the ring, to book a trip to Europe, to purchase designer clothes. Adrienne stared at her hand, at the diamond. Kyle's voice came out strangled. That's not, you can't prove, I can prove all of it. I laid another document on the table, because according to this death certificate, I died 3 months ago. I looked at Adrienne's trembling hand. That diamond is evidence of fraud. The actors just confessed. Kyle's world is collapsing. Type 1 if you're still watching. Quick note, some details are fictionalized for impact. If that's not your thing, I understand. But what happens next with those documents? Unforgettable. I laid the folder on the table. The room went silent except for Beverly's quiet sobbing. I spread the documents across the white tablecloth like dealing cards. First, I placed the house deed front and center. This house, my name. Down payment of $170,000. That hard-earned fortunes. Preston leaned forward reading. Second, the mortgage documents. 3 weeks ago, Kyle took out a mortgage, $150,000, using forged papers, claiming he'd inherited this property. I pointed to the signature line. This isn't my signature. I was already dead by then. Jacqueline gasped softly. Third, I spread out the bank transaction records, highlighted in yellow. $25,000 to Tiffany and Company, $15,000 to European travel consultants, $10,000 to Neiman Marcus. I pointed to Adrienne's hand. That ring. Preston picked up the receipt, his face hardening to stone. You told me this was an inheritance. Kyle's mouth opened. Nothing came out. Adrienne stared at the ring on her finger. The diamond caught the candlelight. Her hand started to shake. She twisted it. Tried to pull it off. It caught at the knuckle. Adrienne, don't. Kyle reached for her. She jerked away, pulled harder. The ring finally slid free. She threw it. It hit the table with a sharp clink, bounced once, and stopped directly in front of Kyle. $25,000 of stolen money. I'll pay everything back. Kyle's voice cracked. Just give me time. Time. I looked at him. You've had 31 years. His face crumpled. I didn't know how to tell you about where I came from, about Colfax Avenue. I just wanted to be someone worthy of you. "So you erased me," I said quietly. Outside sirens grew louder. Kyle's head snapped toward the window. "No, Mom, you didn't." Red and blue lights began flashing through the windows, painting the walls in alternating colors. Kyle stood abruptly, his chair falling backward. "You called the police." I'd texted Carolyn the moment I'd stepped inside. She'd relayed it to Detective Crawford. "What did you think would happen?" I asked. "That I'd let you steal my house, my name." The siren stopped outside. Car doors slammed. Kyle looked around the table. At Preston's cold fury, at Adrienne's devastated face, at Gerald and Beverly who couldn't meet his eyes, at Jacqueline's diamonds glittering in the police lights. The doorbell rang. Nobody moved. The lights flashed through the windows, red, blue, red, blue. Kyle looked at me, his eyes pleading. I stood and walked toward the door. I opened the door. Detective Michelle Crawford stood there in a dark suit badge clipped to her belt. 2 uniformed officers flanked her. "Mrs. Helen Callahan." Crawford's voice was professional calm. "Yes, we have a warrant for the arrest of Kyle Callahan." She stepped inside. Behind me, I heard Kyle's chair scrape violently against the floor. "No," his voice cracked. "There's been a mistake. Mom, tell them. Tell them it's not true." I turned to face him. "I already told them everything." Crawford moved past me into the dining room, the officers following. Kyle backed against the wall, hands raised like he could physically stop what was happening. "I, Kyle Callahan," Crawford said, "you're under arrest for fraud, forgery, and identity theft." One of the officers moved forward with handcuffs. "You have the right to remain silent," Crawford continued. "Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to an attorney." "Mom, please." Kyle's voice broke completely. "Don't do this. I'm your son." The officer turned him around, pulling his arms behind his back. The metallic click of handcuffs echoed in the silent room. "I know," I said quietly. "That's what makes this so hard. If you cannot afford an attorney, one will be appointed for you," Crawford finished. "Do you understand these rights?" Kyle didn't answer. He was staring at me, tears streaming down his face. "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, please." The officers led him toward the door. He twisted against their grip, still looking at me. Cameron stood abruptly. "Kyle, I'll call the office. But man, you're done. You're completely done." Kyle stumbled as they guided him down the front steps. Through the open door, I could see neighbors on their porches drawn by the police lights. Mrs. Rhodes from next door clutching her robe closed, watching with wide eyes. The officers placed Kyle in the back of the patrol car. Even from inside the house, I could see him through the window. His head bowed, his shoulders shaking. Preston Lancaster appeared beside me, putting on his coat. "Mrs. Callahan, I'm sorry you had to go through this. You did the right thing." Jacqueline joined him, her face cold as marble. "Your son almost destroyed my daughter's life." "I know," I said. "I'm sorry he hurt her." Adrienne stood in the foyer, mascara streaked down her cheeks. "I really thought he loved me." I looked at this young woman, beautiful, privileged, heartbroken. "He loved what you represented." "There's a difference." She nodded, crying harder. The Lancasters left. Gerald and Beverly slipped out quietly, heads down, shame written across their faces. Cameron followed without a word. The house emptied. Only 3 people remained, me, Carolyn, and Vernon, who'd appeared from somewhere during the chaos. Carolyn closed her briefcase. "The injunction is in effect. The house is yours. The foreclosure is stopped. What do you want to do with it?" I looked around the dining room, the table I'd never been allowed to sit at, the chandelier I'd paid for but never seen lit, the walls that had locked me out, wine stains on the tablecloth, shattered glass on the floor, chairs pushed back at odd angles, evidence of a dinner party that had ended in catastrophe. "I don't know," I said, "but I have time to figure it out." 3 weeks later, my phone rang. I knew somehow before I answered. It was Kyle. They say justice feels good. 3 weeks after Kyle's arrest, sitting in my efficiency apartment on Colfax Avenue, all I felt was empty. The court hearing had been brief. Kyle pleaded guilty to avoid trial. The judge sentenced him to 2 years probation-ordered restitution and stamped a permanent criminal record onto his life. "You're lucky your mother showed restraint," the judge had said. "This could have been prison time." I hadn't gone to the hearing. Carolyn attended on my behalf and called me afterward with the details. The consequences cascaded. Kyle lost his job at the software company, terminated immediately once the charges became public. His apartment in trendy Denver, $900 in unemployment benefits, didn't cover $1,800 in rent. Vernon called me once a week with updates. He didn't ask if I wanted them. He just told me. Week 1. Kyle was sleeping in his car in a Walmart parking lot. Week 2, a shelter on Colfax took him in. 30-day limit. Week 3, still at the shelter, looking for work. Nobody would hire him. Mrs. Callahan. Vernon said during the last call, "He's 3 miles from you, just thought you should know." 3 miles. The distance I used to travel on the bus to clean hospital floors at dawn. The distance between the life I'd lived and the life Kyle had tried to build by erasing me. I sat in my apartment, the same efficiency I'd lived in for 20 years, and stared at the walls, the cracked plaster, the radiator that clanged at night, the single window overlooking Colfax Avenue. I'd won. The house was mine. Kyle was facing consequences. Justice had been served. So why did it feel like I'd lost something too? Carolyn called to check in. "How are you holding up?" "I won," I said. "So why doesn't it feel like winning?" "Because you're human," she said gently, "and he's still your son." I thought about the photograph. Kyle at 16 grinning with a basketball. The boy who'd made me toast. The boy who'd walked me to the bus stop before dawn. That boy was gone. Maybe he'd been gone for years. But something in me still mourned him. Helen. Carolyn continued. "Whatever you decide to do next, it's your choice. You don't owe him anything. But you don't owe anyone else an explanation either." After we hung up, I stared at my phone, waiting. On day 22, it rang. Unknown number, probably a prepaid phone from the shelter. I stared at the screen. Kyle's voice would be on the other end. My thumb hovered over the green button. The phone kept ringing. I answered. Not because I'd forgiven him, but because I needed to hear his voice to know if I'd done the right thing. I pressed the phone to my ear. "Hello?" "Mom." Kyle's voice cracked, broken, stripped of all pretense. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." I said nothing, just listened. "I know," he choked on the words. "I know you don't want to hear from me, but I didn't know who else to call." Silence stretched between us. I could hear traffic in the background, distant voices. "They repossessed my car yesterday," he said. 3 months behind on payments. "The shelter kicked me out, 30-day limit, they don't let you stay longer. I'm sleeping in a church parking lot, St. Mary's on Sherman Street. I don't have anywhere else to go." Another long pause. I heard him breathe, heard the desperation. "I've been applying everywhere. Fast food, warehouses, gas stations. Nobody will hire me. The background check." His voice broke completely. "The felony shows up every time." I closed my eyes, saw him at 16 with his basketball, at 10 carrying groceries, at 12 making me toast. "Mom, I know I don't deserve anything from you. I know what I did." He couldn't finish. "But could I come home to that house? I wouldn't bother you. I could stay in the attic or the utility room or anywhere. I just need a place to sleep." The word home cut through me. He'd never called it that before. He'd called it an investment, a property, a stepping stone. Now he called it home. Something in my chest twisted. The mother in me, the part that had raised him, fed him, sacrificed for him, wanted to say yes immediately. Wanted to gather him up like I had when he was small and scared. But another part remembered the locked door, remembered his face when he'd told me I didn't belong, remembered my name on a death certificate. "Kyle," I said finally, "I need to know something. Are you calling because you're sorry or because you're desperate?" He was quiet for a long time. When he spoke again, his voice was raw. Both, he whispered. I'm desperate. But Mom, I've had 3 weeks to think. Sleeping in my car, eating at soup kitchens, watching everyone I knew pretend I don't exist. He took a shaky breath. I erased you to people who didn't matter, and I lost the only person who ever did. I opened my eyes, stared at my cracked plaster ceiling. I saw 2 images, Kyle at 16, full of hope and dreams. Kyle at the door, cold and ashamed of me. Which one was real? Maybe both. Maybe neither. Kyle. I said, my voice steady. Okay, you can come back. He gasped, relief, disbelief, gratitude tumbling out in a sob. But, I continued, not as my son coming home, as a tenant. With conditions. I laid out the rules for him. Not because I was cruel, but because love without boundaries isn't love. It's permission to be destroyed. The phone call continued. Kyle listened without interrupting. First, I said, you get the back room, the attic space about 150 square feet, single bed desk window, that's your space. Okay, he whispered. Second, the main house becomes a community support center for families in need. The house you tried to steal will help people you tried to become better than. Silence. Then, I understand. Third, you volunteer minimum 20 hours a week, helping other single mothers, teaching financial literacy, sorting food donations. Yes, ma'am. Fourth, when you find work, you pay $200 a month rent. Symbolic. Okay. Fifth, you earn back trust through consistent action over time, not through apologies, through showing up. Every single day, do you understand? I do. His voice was small. I won't let you down. Kyle, I said, I'm not doing this because I forgive you. I'm doing this because everyone deserves one chance to rebuild. Don't waste it. I won't. Be here Monday, 9 a.m. We have work to do. 3 months later. The transformation had taken every penny of Kyle's restitution payments and most of my savings. The ground floor opened up walls removed between living room and dining room, creating one large community space. The chandelier now hung over donated furniture where mothers could sit while their children played. Fresh paint, warm yellows and soft blues. Bulletin boards held job postings and resource information. The dining room table where Kyle had hosted his fraudulent dinner now seated 12. Tuesday nights, community meals. Thursday afternoons, financial literacy classes. Saturday mornings, food pantry. Upstairs, I'd finally moved into the master bedroom. The first time I'd slept there, I'd cried, not from sadness, from relief, from vindication. And the attic. Kyle's room. 150 square feet. Single bed. Desk. Small window. Smaller than my Colfax apartment. Smaller than the master bedroom below. More than he deserved. Exactly what he needed. Kyle had moved in 6 weeks ago, found a job night shift stocking shelves at a grocery store, paid his $200 rent the first of every month. We rarely spoke. When we did, it was practical. He called me Mrs. Callahan now, not Mom. I didn't correct him. 3 months after that phone call, I stood in the foyer of 2847 East 7th Avenue, the same spot where I'd confronted my son. Nothing looked the same anymore. The house that had almost destroyed us had been reborn. The house that almost broke me became the house that rebuilt me, and in the process, it started rebuilding Kyle too. 6 months after the arrest, the ground floor had become community space. Folding chairs arranged in circles for support groups. The kitchen hosted community meals on Tuesdays and Fridays. I cooked alongside volunteers, women who'd walked paths similar to mine. A sign by the door, welcome all, Cherry Creek Community Support. Kyle's daily routine wake, early arrange chairs, help elderly guests up the front steps, sort food donations in the basement, lead financial literacy workshops, teaching what not to do, using his own mistakes as cautionary tales. He'd changed, lost weight, quieter, no expensive clothes anymore, thrift store jeans, plain t-shirts, small interactions showed his effort. Mrs. Rodriguez, an elderly woman, thank you, Kyle. Kyle, you're welcome, Mrs. Rodriguez. Genuine, humble. Our cohabitation remained polite but distant. Shared kitchen, awkward silences. Once Kyle tried, "Mom, I wanted to say, 'Not yet, Kyle, we're not ready for that conversation.' But small signs of thawing appeared. I left larger portions when cooking. Kyle fixed the broken front step without being asked. One Tuesday evening, I led the support group, shared my story. 'My son erased me,' I said, and I almost let that define me. But I chose to define myself." Upstairs, Kyle was on the phone, a job interview. "Yes, I'm interested in the custodial position at Denver Health. I have experience with cleaning. My mother worked there 30 years. I heard through the door, smiled faintly. After the meeting ended, I walked upstairs, stood outside Kyle's door. I knocked softly. The door opened. Kyle's face, hope mixed with fear. "Kyle," I said, "can we talk?" "Yes, please." I paused. "Not tonight, but soon. Maybe next week." I closed the door gently. His face showed understanding. The work continued. I walked downstairs, stood by the window, watching sunset fall over Denver. They say I should have let him fall completely. Others say I should have forgiven him immediately. I chose the harder path, the long one, because real love isn't sacrificing yourself until you disappear. It's showing up for others and for yourself. My son has years of work ahead. So do I. But we're doing it in the house that almost destroyed us, now rebuilt on truth, not lies. I am Helen Callahan, and I'm finally home. Looking back, I learned that family drama stories teach us love. Without boundaries isn't protection, it's permission for destruction. My son erased me to climb socially, and I almost let that define me. Don't be like me. Don't sacrifice until you disappear. Don't wait 15 years to set boundaries. Don't mistake enabling for love. Don't believe that suffering in silence makes you a better parent. When I stood at that locked door, I prayed for wisdom. God didn't promise easy answers. He gave me courage to face hard truths. Proverbs says, "Above all else, guard your heart." God's grace carried me through every painful step, even when I couldn't see the path ahead. These family drama stories belong to every mother who sacrificed too much, every child who chose shame over love, every family trying to rebuild after betrayal. My story became one of those grandma stories about resilience and redemption, the kind of grandma stories passed down to teach boundaries and self-worth to the next generation. Kyle and I are still rebuilding. 6 months in, we're not healed, but we're healing. The house that almost destroyed us now serves others. Through serving them, we're learning to serve each other again. It's messy, it's hard, but it's honest. The lesson: teach accountability early. Love fiercely, but don't erase yourself in the process. God created you with purpose and dignity. Don't let anyone, not even your own child, steal that from you. Your worth isn't measured by how much you give up, but by how well you honor the life you've been given. These grandma stories remind us you can love someone deeply and still hold them accountable. You can forgive without forgetting. You can rebuild without pretending the damage never happened. Family drama stories like mine prove that redemption is possible through truth time and unwavering faith. Thank you for walking this entire journey with me. Drop amen in the comments. If this story spoke to your heart, I truly need to know you're here. This narrative contains dramatized elements crafted for reflection and growth. If it resonated, please subscribe, share with someone who needs to hear it, and tell me what's your biggest takeaway. Your engagement helps these stories reach the families who need them most. God bless you abundantly.